Welcome to AGRIMINDS, the podcast where we explore the intersections of personal growth and professional success in the ag industry. I'm Kacee Bohle, your host. Thank you for joining me as we dive in to the different strategies and insights that will help you level up your life and career. From mental health to leadership development, we're going to cover it all. So sit back and get ready to grow with AGRIMINDS. Hello and welcome to the AGRIMINDS Podcast. This is Kacee Bohle. And today I've got Cassie Yontz with me, and her and I connected on LinkedIn a while back. I feel like I say this every single episode where it's like, you and I connected a couple years ago, but it's true. And I have been following Cassie's story and seeing some of her posts, and I've been super inspired by this turning point that she experienced in her life. And so today I'm just going to basically hand the mic over to Cassie and let her just tell you her story. And I think it's going to be super inspiring. And there may be questions, there may be laughs, there may be cries. I don't know. We're going to see how this goes. But welcome to the AGRIMINDS Podcast.
Thank you so much, Kacee. I'm really excited to be here this morning. And I appreciate the opportunity to come on here and share my story. We were talking about it as we prepared, and this is one of those things in your life that you want to believe when you're in that moment that there's a purpose for it, that there's a point to the pain that you're going through or what you're experiencing. And in the years since my diagnosis, I have had so many people come up to me and talk to me about their experiences or ask for support in those moments, in those seasons. And so just even the opportunity to come on to the AGRIMINDS podcast and share my story and hopefully bring some hope and some inspiration to your audiences. I got to believe that is a part of what all this was for. So I am just another ag professional, agri-woman. I've been in the ag industry my whole career. I'm living here in Bloomington, Illinois. I'm a working mom. I've got 2 kiddos, and just so happens that almost 5 years ago, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. I was deep into my career. I was only 31 years old, and I had just had my first kiddo, and it was in that season of life where you're doing all the things. I was growing, I was pushing, I was building, something that I was really proud of. And then I was diagnosed with breast cancer, and everything just kind of stops. And it wasn't just like a health crisis, but it became almost like this identity crisis, because everything that I thought that I had any type of control over, everything that I felt like was mine, suddenly became fragile. And it was very eye-opening that like cancer doesn't care what you think you know about yourself. It doesn't care about how you want to show up or how strong you want to be. It was one of those things where I felt like my identity was wrapped up in being someone who showed up, who was capable, who was reliable, who was the go-getter. And I couldn't be that anymore. Like I couldn't just push through. I couldn't solve the problems. I couldn't outwork this or outplan this. I had to just stop, and I had to get humble and be vulnerable with people. I had to ask for help. I had to let others in. And it was just this moment in my life where it immediately broke everything into before and after. And I think that's where we talk about like that turning point moment. And when you're in treatment, when you're going through it, a lot of my time was spent focused on, well, I'm being proactive. I'm taking action. We're getting rid of this stuff. Like I'm doing the things. And it felt like there was a bit of that control back again, right? Like I'm in control of this. I'm getting better. I'm being healthier. I'm determined to beat this. And when I got on the other side of that, it was realizing that what you thought you were working for the whole time to get back to life, like I'm going to get back to life, I'm going to get back to normal, things are going to get back to normal, that's not actually true. Like there is no going back. You have to find a way to start moving forward and like moving forward differently. And I think that that's just been one of the things that I'm starting to come to terms with. I will be at my 5-year diagnosis anniversary this April, which is a huge milestone, especially for the type of breast cancer that I had had. And it's one of those moments where you're like, okay, I am less triggered. I feel less traumatized. I'm able to use that pain and put it into purpose. And what does it look like to show up differently? What does it look like to lead with empathy, to come from a place of, life keeps going and you keep working and doing your jobs and being a mom. And part of you sometimes is like, wait, but I beat cancer. Like that's that's a big point in my life. But you know what? Life keeps turning. And so how do you continue to show up in a way that is going to take that perspective when you were like fragile and everything felt broken, and put it into purpose, and making sure that it wasn't for nothing. So it was a lot going on.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot. And I can't relate because I've not gone through what you've gone through, but I know many people who have. And so often I have had people come up to me after a keynote when I'm talking about like balancing work and family or being intentional, leadership, things like that. And every single time it's, man, I wish I would have known to be this intentional. I wish I would have known to pay attention to this before insert thing, whether it's a tragedy, whether it's a setback, whether it's a complete unexpected pivot in your career, whatever it is. I wish I would have known it before this thing happened. And so I don't think that you can't be proactive towards something that you don't expect.
No.
And we don't want to anticipate the worst case scenario or anticipate these setbacks. But I would love to hear a little bit more about like, what was life like before you found out? Because I mean, you said you were 31. My gosh, that's so young. So I just turned, I don't know why I just said that. I'm about to be 36. I didn't just turn 35. It shows you how
feels
old I'm
like
getting.
that.
I'm getting ready to turn 36. And this is going to be a little bit more feminine for the folks that are male listeners here. So I totally get it. But I think it's important because if you've got women in your life, you need to know this kind of stuff and what they're dealing with. So I think it's important for everybody to listen to this. But, something that my mom and my grandma both had, both on both sides of my family, were, they've got what they call dense breasts, where it's like, there's fibrous stuff. I don't even know all the right terms. Yeah. And so there's been bumps and things. And then my grandma got cancer. And, this is just like always top of mind for me.
Yeah.
And so I went in back when I was like early 20s. I was like, let's just take a sweep, make sure everything looks good. Everything looked good. And then this past year, I was a little bit concerned about something and called down and I said, hey, I want to get a mammogram. And they're like, well, you're only 35. And I was like, I don't care. Yeah. I want the peace of mind. And when I went in there, like they didn't say, yes, something's wrong, but they didn't say, no, nothing's wrong. And so they're like, we're going to have you back in 6 months. So I go back in about a month from now. And so we'll see how that goes. I'm praying to God nothing is wrong. But I mean, it's just like, here we are in our 30s and, they say like, oh, like the chances are so slim. But then it's like, but you have to be proactive. It's like, I don't feel like we can win because we want to be proactive and they're telling us, oh, you're too young to come. We've got to have an exemption for you. And so it's just like, what a barrier. That's kind of a pain in the ass about that. I do get kind of frustrated about that part because it's like, I talked about the mental health aspect a couple episodes ago with Colleen, who's a therapist. And I said, so many people are like, mental health, take care of your mental health. But the barriers to entry are hard because it's like, well, the insurance game and the accessibility where you're at and all the things. And it's like the same thing for your physical health too. So back to my question was, what did life look like before that? I mean, were you seeing signs or did you get pregnant? And then that's when, like, how did this happen? Do you mind sharing that?
Not at all. It's a very important piece of the story because for me, it wasn't even on my radar. You're absolutely right in so many things. Insurance is such a hurdle. We are not fundamentally studying women's health when we're talking, like the things that we don't know about women's anatomy, the things that we don't know about women and having babies and getting pregnant and like taking care of women's bodies is unreal to me. But for me, as a 30-year-old who had her first baby, no family history, no reason for it to even be on my radar. I had done all the things. When they tell you all the things that are going to prevent or limit your risk to breast cancer, I checked all those boxes. And my daughter was 15 months old. Frame of reference, like we were still coming out of the pandemic. It was 2021 when my daughter was born. And so in that time frame, like I felt some pain and I felt a lump and I was like, oh man, but then it went away. I had just finished breastfeeding. It fell off my radar again. Another month went by, but then the pain came back and the lump was bigger that time. So the first time I thought to myself, oh, it's probably just like a clogged duct. We just stopped
Yeah.
breastfeeding and, moving on to the next phase of life. The next time I felt it, it was bigger. I was more afraid and more attuned to, hey, this is off. Something is weird. And I went in to my OB's office to have it checked out. And she said, yep, we want to get you in for a mammogram right away. And it all just kind of snowballed from there. But the whole time I went for the mammogram, I had the dense breast tissue. I had the imaging done. They immediately said, we're going to need to do an ultrasound because of your tissue type. And that led to a biopsy. And the whole way, all the doctors, bless their hearts, they were like, you're young, no family history. You were breastfeeding. There's no way this is cancer. You're going to be fine. They were trying to reassure me the whole time until it wasn't, like, until I wasn't able to be reassured anymore, until it was determined, nope, this is actually breast cancer. Now we got to figure out a plan for moving forward. It's wild thinking back to those, what were definitely weeks between when I could get in and when I could have appointments done, the amount of tension that my body held on to. And just out of fear. Like I remember feeling so tense and so exhausted and so worried that when I finally went and got the biopsy done, and even then the doctor who did the biopsy was very confident, this isn't cancer. I'm sure you're going to be fine. We'll let you know. We'll get the results back. I left that biopsy thinking, okay, we'll have answers. Everything's fine. The tension left my body as if I was just like pulling weights off of my shoulders. I remember going home and sleeping for like a good hour because my body had just been so exhausted from carrying all of that fear and worry and anxiety. And then a few days go by and it was late at night. My husband and I were up working late here in the office. And so I should have known. I should have known something was odd because my doctor calls me at 9 o'clock at night on a Monday night. And I'm thinking, oh, she's just getting caught up on everything that's going on. And she's calling to let me know that she's aware. And she was calling because she thought that I was aware of what the results were. And so we both were surprised on the call. She called and she's like, hey, I've got your results in front of me and I just want to talk to you about them. And I said, oh, well, I haven't heard anything. So I figured no news was good news. And it was like the air had been sucked out of the room. She immediately tone changed and I knew exactly what was coming. And she said, well, Cassie, it's breast cancer. And then we talked through what that meant. I remember grabbing a notepad and just furiously scribbling down because I'm a problem solver. Like I'm a planner, I'm a problem solver. You give me a problem, I want the details and I'm going to figure out how to solve it. And I got off the phone with her and I think that's when reality set in and I just started sobbing and my husband came over and I called my mom. And I think that was the time, like I cursed for the first time. I was like, what? Like so in shock, so angry, so terrified. And we moved through that night like it was a movie, almost like slow motion. And we got in bed and we were trying to process. I remember looking on my phone at photos of my new baby, just like, why would this happen? Why would God give me so many blessings, answer so many prayers? We had tried so hard to get pregnant. Like, why would we have all of these wonderful blessings just for this to happen? And there was a moment. I mean, I feel like life is full of all of these tiny little turning points in our experiences here. But there was a moment in bed where I could sense my husband's fear and worry. And I knew that I was carrying a lot of fear and worry, but there was this determined resolve. I just sat there and I said, we're going to beat this. There's no other option. And I think in that moment, that's exactly what he needed to hear. That's what I needed to say for it to feel true. And we somehow got sleep that night. God bless us with sleep. We rested. I woke up the next morning and was like, okay, it's time to go. Like everything else is on hold. You make the phone calls. I called my boss at work. She was amazing because she had known what was going on. My mom drove over and she's like, okay, what do we do? I said, we got to wait. We got to wait for appointments with doctors and nurses, but they're coming tomorrow and we'll get it going. And at that point, it very quickly snaps into focus what matters most in your life and the people that are going to be alongside you to help facilitate getting through what you got to get through. So it's a very clear before and after moment. And it showed myself and the others, the people that I love around me, it showed us exactly who we are and how we show up for one another in that time.
I just appreciate you shining a little bit of a light on the fact that we don't pay attention to let me re-say this. Women in general are so uneducated about their own bodies. We are so uneducated. For example, I mentor this young woman. She's early 20s. And she was like, hey, can I come over and you help me out with my annual budget, right? Like, we've been working on making sure that she's got her student loans paid off. She's working on a mortgage already. Like, she's kicking butt, and I'm so proud of her. And she was talking about something, and I said something about, oh, next week my brain will be a little bit more clearer. And she's like, what do you mean? I was like, oh, well, this week, whatever. I was talking about my cycle. And she's like, how do you know that? And I was like, what do you mean how I know that? Like, talking about the different seasons of your cycle. Yeah. And she's like, I've never been taught that. I was like, surely you guys went through that in school. Like, I don't remember going through what your menstrual cycle seasons are in school, but I'm sure we did, right? And she's like, I don't think we did. If we did, I don't remember. I mean, she's early 20s, so like that's pretty fresh. And she's like, I don't think anybody ever taught that to me. So we started talking about like when ovulation is, when menstruation is, and which, all those different seasons. And she's just like, so during this time, that's the only time that I could get pregnant. And I was like, yeah, you don't know that? She's like, no. I was like, that's probably pretty important for you to know. Like you're going to deal with this every month for the rest of your life. Well, maybe not forever, but you're going to deal with this every single month. You should probably know why your body's feeling the way that it's feeling. And so back to when you were talking about like, when you're breastfeeding and you felt a little sore in one area or like something didn't quite feel right, same thing, right? Every single month it's like, okay, I'm tender. And if you don't know what week you're in, you could automatically go into panic mode thinking something's wrong. But I am so in tune with my body now that I know, okay, it's 3 days before I'm about to start. Of course, I'm getting emotional. Of course, I'm having these cravings. Of course, my brain is foggy. Of course, I'm feeling tender. Like, of course. But I know that. And if it's any longer than that, then I start to panic. But if it's not, then it's like, okay, I understand why. But those are the red flags. And I think that's so important to know. And we were never taught this stuff, right? We were never taught about boundaries. We weren't taught about balance, work-life balance. We weren't taught about how to check in with ourselves when we're feeling stressed or our nervous system is overstimulated. But we were definitely not taught about how our body works.
We were taught in high school, you have sex, you will get pregnant. That was your lesson, right?
It is pretty wild to think about. I mean, and that's why I always say, like, I think we need to talk about the human so much more. I mean, we talk about technology, we talk about the latest, greatest seed hybrids, we talk about new equipment, we talk about how to market better. But what we are not talking about is the human who's doing all this stuff. And being a woman in the ag industry, I will never play the female card, the woman in ag card. I will never play that. So don't expect that. Yeah. But I will say it does come with some challenges, especially when you're working around men and, you're the only female in the field and you have a group of 20 men that you're with on a field day. It's like, hello, there's some times where it's like, you don't need to know what I'm up to for a couple minutes. Right. Okay. And you just can't talk about that stuff. And that is reality. I'm not saying I'm a victim in any way, sense, or form, but I am saying like there's just places where we probably as women have felt like we can't talk about certain things because it might inconvenience or make somebody uncomfortable, or we're just not even educated. We don't even know we need to talk about it.
You said it beautifully when you said like, it's not like, oh, hey, man, this might not be for you. But if you're a guy, odds are you have a woman in your life that you care about, that you need to be aware of what they're going through. And also, hey, newsflash, guys, breast cancer can happen to you too. So like, don't forget that. But it's one of it's one of those things where it is universal. If you aren't someone who has been directly impacted by cancer, breast cancer, odds are you have like 1 degree of separation from someone that has. And the more that you know, the more you're empowered to ask the right questions and to make sure you're putting yourself in a really good position to be proactive. I think one of the biggest things I took away from my experience was early detection. Early detection saves lives. If I had just let it go for another month, if that pain had came and went again, like who knows how big it would have gotten? Who knows how it would have traveled? We would have been looking at a completely different situation. In fact, I should have addressed it a month prior when I first felt it. But I thought to myself, I'm sure it's fine. I'm sure it's nothing. So
again, the clogged milk duct. Probably
don't
so many of us
fall
would
prey
have
to
written that off. Yep.
Yeah. You have to ask the right questions. And I also love the way you talk about like how we show up as people. I think that is something that is universal to all of us too, is that we show up in these jobs. We have these things, the 9 to 5, where we get up, we do our thing, we go to work, and we want to believe that everyone is able to just like leave themselves at home. You know, like that Apple TV show Severance, where it's like, hey, I'm going to cut off this personal part of my life and I'm just going to show up and do my work and go home. That's not how it is. We are complex, complicated human beings. We are a whole person. And it was so apparent to me that because I was so forthcoming with my story while I was working, I went through treatment and balanced work the whole time. And I had an amazing team that allowed me to do that and empowered me to do that. But because they were aware of my situation, because I was willing to trust them with that and be vulnerable in that season, they showed up differently for me too. And I think it's this story of, guys, if we're willing to be mutually vulnerable, mutually honest with one another about what we're dealing with to a degree, like obviously set boundaries, but recognize that when you show up, the person that you're working alongside or across from or might be disagreeing with, that they have a whole other part of their life that you don't see, that you don't know about, and that's motivating the way that they show up. And if they're tense or frustrated, it could have nothing to do with you. And so try and lead from a place of grace and understanding and empathy, and just see where that gets you. Because I think at the end of the day, if we can all start seeing each other as whole people and not just, oh, that's Joe from finance, like we're going to be able to understand one another a whole lot better and work differently together.
Oh my gosh. And it's not just breast cancer. I mean, not to diminish your story, but I mean, it's just
completely,
people are dealing with crap all the time.
So much
divorce, having relationships with their kids that are rebelling or whatever, transitions with their parents and having a parent pass away. And now all of a sudden there's sibling rivalry. I mean, I'm seeing there are people that are having heart attacks at the age of 38. So just the episode right before this, Adam, he talks about how he was 38 years old and he had a heart attack, 100% stress induced.
Oh my
100% stress induced. And it's like, crazy. Those are things it's like, I don't know the answer, but I do know we need to talk about it. Yeah. And for so long, I've heard in this industry that, you know, people in agriculture, they don't show emotions. We don't talk about emotions, yet everything we do is driven from emotion. If you didn't care about what you were doing, you wouldn't be doing it. If you didn't have some emotional tie to this work, you wouldn't be doing it.
No, it's never just
everything
business.
Is emotional. Everything is emotional in this business. And I just feel like you want to know why there's high suicide rates, high heart problems, high mental health issues. It starts with the person.
Yep.
And if we don't even know how to have a conversation about it, of course we don't know how to support. Of course we don't know how to help be proactive. Of course you're going to feel like you're alone. Yep. And if you want to talk about setting the next generation up for success, I don't think it has a whole lot to do with the actual land or the markets or any of that. I think it has a lot to do with the human being.
No.
That's important.
This business and this industry, it is so isolating. And I mean, the parallels between cancer and what I went through and the ag industry are just, I mean, they write themselves. Like going through what I went through was such an isolating experience in the sense that you don't know unless you're in it. And I was lucky enough. My story is also really crazy, Kacee. I was diagnosed at the same day as another girl under 40. We had the same care team. We live in the same town. We didn't know each other. And it was a mutual friend that actually connected us. And we are now best friends. And like, we call ourselves breasties. And like, we were able to move through that treatment and that trauma and experience that together. And I think if I hadn't had someone that really truly got it, who was going through the same things I was going through, that I could talk to and be in it with, it would have been a very dark and scary experience. But honestly, it's one of those things I look back on with such kind of tender appreciation and gratitude of like, wow, that was the shittiest, hardest time in my life. And thank you, God, for that. Like, I'm thankful for what I went through in that season. The same applies to what you're talking about, the industry and what farmers go through and what people in the ag industry go through. it is a very temperamental industry, and it can be very isolating. You have this idea that you are this strong, independent businessman who shows up on the farm and knows exactly what to do, has all the answers, has been doing it his whole life. It is not a job. It is your identity. I don't farm. I'm a farmer. And it's one of those things where if you don't have someone that you can talk to and be honest with and be real with and be vulnerable with, then you're carrying around all of that anxiety and worry and fear, and it will eat you from the inside out. So we have to find a way to understand that community built intentionally that makes us feel safe and seen and heard is your superpower. You have to be willing to let others in and let someone walk alongside you through that. Otherwise, you will slowly just fall to the ways of this world, and it's dark and it's hard, and you have to be willing to let people in.
Yeah. So you mentioned you found out, they gave you the diagnosis, you're on the phone call with the doctor. Can we talk about your mindset for a little bit? I mean, the real mindset that you had. I mean, you mentioned like, we're going to get through this. Yeah. Was there ever a time where it wasn't that, where you're like, holy shit, what's happening? Or were you always kind of just like optimistic and determined? What did your mindset look like?
I feel like a lot of the inner dialogue, that first night especially, was just shock and anger and worry. But then, the resolve set in, and that was good. Like I knew that I needed to commit in my mind and say it out loud that this wasn't how my story ended. And in doing that, I feel like it really helped bring along the others that were worried about me, that loved me and cared about me. It brought them along into that space to be like, okay, she's getting through this and we're going to help her get through it. Who I am as a person, like I'm a recovering people pleaser. I have been always concerned in my life. I'm a classic middle child who's always concerned about making sure everyone feels involved, everyone feels included. I'm worried about everyone else's feelings. So one of my biggest fears was, man, am I going to be just doom and gloom and angry and depressed and like hurtful and hateful toward my husband or toward my kids or toward like, am I going to let that anger explode all over people? And I was very thankful, like you see that in the movies, right? And I was very thankful that was not my experience. That I do think because of my faith, because of where I was finding light and encouragement, it was a never ending source of like positivity and just knowing that no matter what, there was a plan, and I just had to show up every day and do what I had to do to get to the next day and take it one day at a time. There was a moment about middle of treatment. So I had been diagnosed in April. I started treatment in May, and about July, I was probably halfway through treatment. It was 4th of July weekend. I was sick. I couldn't go outside. It was hot. It was beautiful. And because of me, like my husband and my daughter, we couldn't go do the fun 4th of July festivities. And that was the one time I really recall just being really angry at God. Like I hadn't felt that before. And I was just pissed off. I was like, why is this? Why am I the reason that like my husband and daughter have to go sit in some tiny little crappy kiddie pool in our backyard, just like hanging out in the hot sun, and we can't be around friends and we can't do anything fun? And I think I had just gotten to a point where I was feeling worn down, and I let myself sit in those feelings. I gave myself space to feel what I was feeling and to process through that and just be angry for a minute and cry and scream out. And then, and I moved through it as quickly as it came. It was one of those things where, give yourself space, feel those feelings, but recognize that you don't have to stay there. Like I had a choice then in that moment to come to resolution, put that back on the shelf and move forward and say, all right, okay, you felt that. That's good. It's real. Give it space. It's valid. But at the same time, we're going to go kick some cancer ass. Like this isn't how our story ends. And I think that was just, that was the reality of it, is there was never any other option. And we haven't got this, but I actually had a scare occur about a month and a half ago. I went back for my regular imaging. I get imaging done every 6 months now. We're in the monitoring phase and praying that nothing ever comes back. I went back for my regular MRI, and I could tell something was off. The screening came back, and they said, we've got 2 abnormalities in your left breast. My cancer had been in my right breast. And I very vividly remembered my oncologist at the beginning of treatment saying, oh yeah, risk of recurrence. We got to keep an eye out for that. I mean, odds are if it ever came back, it'd be in a different breast and a different kind of cancer. So immediately that's where my head goes, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, great. Like he just predicted this. So I go through the same song and dance. It felt like I was back at square one, had to go do a mammogram and the ultrasound and the biopsy. And ultimately I was very lucky that it turned out to be nothing this time. But when all you've heard up until that point is that it's cancer, you don't think there's anything else that it could be. So it was another moment where I got a phone call from my doctor who had given me the initial diagnosis. And I started crying when she said, Cassie, it's not cancer. And I had said, Kim, her name's Kim. I said, Kim, what a redemptive moment that you get to be the one to call me and tell me that it's not this time. And what a blessing. And I was just overwhelmed by like that redemption arc to say, hey, you know what? This is life now. I have to be able to move through and move forward and carry both the good and the hard and heavy. And like, I always joke with my friend that like, that's why God gave us two hands. We carry it both and we have to find a way to keep moving forward. So yeah, it was definitely a scare, but it was like, hey, I think this is what life is going to be now. I'm never going to stop getting imaging. I'm always going to be checking so that if we do find something, pray to the good Lord it's early enough. And I have to find a way to keep moving forward.
Wow. I don't know what this is like. And like I mentioned earlier to you, like I hope that I don't know what it's like to go through that, but I do
Me
know
too.
what it feels like to have life sort of be interrupted.
Yep.
When you least expect it. And on past episodes, I've talked about how, like harvest can be going great. And then all of a sudden something happens to the combine and it completely just throws harvest off and you spend way more money than you wanted. The downtime is lasting longer than you wanted. But I don't think we've talked a lot about when something happens to you personally. And I mean, I've talked to people who've lost people and like, oh yeah, by losing them, whether it was by suicide or a car accident or a breakup or a divorce, whatever that looks like, somebody's removed from your life and now you are left figuring out what your new normal looks like. We've talked about that, but we've not talked about something happening to you personally and you being it. You're the thing.
Yeah.
Man, I can't imagine. And I don't even know how to wrap my head around it, but I just appreciate you sharing it. And what I'm kind of like struggling to understand is how your spirits are today, right? Like having this conversation with you, like I was starting to like feel a little overwhelmed there of just like, I felt like I wanted to cry when you were talking about your story. And then I got goosebumps when you were telling parts of your story, and we haven't even heard all of it. You've just given us the highlight reel. I mean, you haven't shared the dark spots. You haven't shared the celebrations and the wins, but just hearing your highlight reel here, it's done enough emotionally to me where I'm like, holy cow, how are you doing so well? How are you able to have this conversation with me right now, not breaking down? How are you able to be here? You were laughing with me before we hit record. You look phenomenal. I mean, you look healthy. You look like you're glowing and you look like you feel good. But I don't know if that's actually the case. And I think so often, like some people do put on the picture that everything is hunky-dory and that they are great. But I mean, genuinely, it looks like you are. I mean, can we talk about that for a little while? Are you feeling good? Like, do you feel good? Are you happy? How are your spirits the way that they are right now? Can we just get raw with this real quick?
I love that. You're so right. I think it is not realistic to think that I look and feel and show up like this every day. And I mean, not even just for me and what I went through, like every single person, we carry so much. Life is hard. There's a reason that everyone says like adulting is hard. When you get into a certain stage of life, we carry so much and it almost always shows up in us in different ways, physically, emotionally, being able to like regulate yourself in difficult situations. I am by no means always this put together and just positive, but I will say, I mean, I alluded to it a bit earlier. My biggest thing that I always keep coming back to is my faith. I was so blessed in my experience to be able to sit here and say, I never felt God so present as then when I was going through my treatment. And it was one of those moments where, like, I very vividly remember sitting on my bed, and it was a few days after like my first round of treatment, and I wasn't feeling great, and I was scared and I was worried, and I just very presently, I remember feeling God's presence and just being like, wow, okay, like it's going to be okay. So that's a big part of my like outlook on life, and the way that I show up is just knowing that like I'm part of a bigger story, and it's already been written. And like, as much as I worry, I am such a type A planner, worrier person. As much as I do that and spin my wheels doing that, God's like, yeah, you can plan all you want, but something is still going to happen, and I'm going to be there for you when it does. So a lot of my outlook on life has to do with that. I always try and tell people, once either the folks that I've talked to that are going through treatment or have been diagnosed with breast cancer and are coming to me and looking for support, I don't tell them this right away, but the season where you're doing active treatment, it's honestly not the hardest part. Like you're proactive, you're showing up, you're doing the thing, you're killing the cancer, you're seeing doctors daily, you're getting the drugs, and you're feeling like, okay, we're taking action. The first year after, Kacee, I could not have sat here and talked to you like this. Everything made me cry. Everything made me scared. I was constantly squishing my boobs to feel if there were like lumps and bumps. I was always thinking about like any pain in my body. What is that? Because now I don't have that luxury of thinking it's nothing. I'll never again have that luxury of thinking it's nothing. And so that first year, second year after I finished treatment, those were the hardest years. October, Breast Cancer Awareness Month. I am a fall girly. I love fall. October comes around, I was a mess. I hated the color pink. I was so afraid. Just everything was triggering. And it was really freaking hard. And it was something that like, I wanted to be okay. I wanted to show like, hey, I beat this and I'm doing okay. Everyone who is with you in that fight, when you're finally declared NED, dead, no evidence of disease, they all take a breath of relief. Like, okay, it's over. It's done. And I think it's that reality, especially with cancer, and I'm sure with other types of diseases like this too, that it's never actually ever done for us. We get better at carrying it. I always think of it as like tension over time. I am constantly carrying this weight, and I'm just getting stronger the longer that I carry it. And so almost 5 years out now, I'm able to sit here and talk to you about it without completely losing my shit, without crying when I think about myself in those moments. But it took time to get here. Those years afterwards, like, were really hard. And I still shore up myself and try and help myself from being triggered. Whenever, I mean, this is going to sound so silly, but like, I don't get to watch medical shows anymore. I don't watch medical dramas. When TV commercials come on talking about metastatic breast cancer or like medications for that, I always mute it. Like, I can't let myself go there, because that can't ever be, in my mind, that can't ever be something that I'm going to face. I have to be on this side. It has to be done. Otherwise, I would just stay sitting in that, I think. And it would be really, really hard to be able to say, hey, but there's life, and look how much life I get to live, and look what I've gotten to do with my life so far, and look how much has changed. I didn't, like, we had just started our family. I didn't know what would be possible after cancer. I wanted a sibling for my daughter, and after everything we went through, I wanted that so desperately, because God forbid I was ripped away from my family. I didn't want her to be alone. And honestly, like, God showed up and gave with both hands. We were able to have a child a year after active treatment. And I didn't even think that'd be possible. Like, it's one of those things where if you look around for the miracles, they are everywhere. And I have been given way too many, but I'm not going to, like, I will keep asking for more, because God just keeps giving. Like, it's one of those things where if you look to find the good, you'll find it. If you look to find the bad, you'll find it too. But like, you have to be in control of where you want to spend your time and your energy in your life. And like I said, give yourself space to feel those feelings, honor them, validate them, process them, go to therapy, talk to someone about it, and then give yourself permission to put that back on the shelf and move into what the new normal looks like, and what your new reality is.
Yeah, I liked what you said about the feelings part. We talk about that in AGRIMINDS Live, and how most people on average use like 10 to 15 feelings to describe what they're experiencing. And then we talk about how there's actually like several hundred feelings that have been identified, but we don't recognize that those exist. So they're not a
Right.
part of our vocabulary. And it's like, had when we been able to accurately describe how we feel, think how much different that conversation would be. Like if you're having a conversation with your spouse or your boss or your coworker or even your kid, if you were actually describing how you're feeling with a more like justifiable word, like this is actually what I'm feeling, how much different the conversation would be. And so I loved what you talked about, like every feeling is okay, and feelings are information
Yeah.
telling us how you're, like what you're processing, what you're experiencing, and then what you should be doing with it. But I
Yeah.
love that you're like, let me accept the feeling and process the feeling and then move away from that feeling onto something else. Like a former coach of mine used the example of like a train station and how our feelings are these different trains that are coming in and out of the station. And you have the option to jump on any of those trains whenever you want. And if you want to move through the cars through intensity of like, okay, I'm going to go back further, even more intense feelings, or if you want to jump off that train and get on another one, or if you want to combine two trains for a compound feeling like bittersweet, for example, you have the option to do that. And you can jump off that train at any point in time. But it's important that you recognize you have the trains, and it's important to ride the trains because every single feeling is going to help you understand, know, and appreciate what's happening. And if you avoid them or resist them, it doesn't pan out well. And so
It
I
doesn't
like the
stop them
fact
from
that
coming. They're
it doesn't
still going to
stop them
come
from
through the
coming.
station.
Yes. Yeah, they're still your trains. You got
Yeah.
to maintain them. You got to use them. You got to make sure they're still running properly. And it helps you understand and appreciate the other trains, the luxury trains, right? Like
Yes.
you want to ride those, but you don't know how nice they are unless you ride the junkie trains.
Exactly. That's so real. That's so real.
Yeah.
I mean, it is one of those things that you're so right of like, you don't understand what you got until you recognize what you have. And I think it's one of those things where my kids, they still stress me out. My husband and I, we still have arguments. Like life is still lifing. It is normal city over here. And we go through the same things that everybody else goes through. But if I can remind myself, but where were we 4 years ago? What did it look like 4 years ago? How far have we come? My God, we have a second kid. Like, okay, take a breath, ground yourself and remember like how lucky we are to be here changing dirty diapers. Like how lucky we are to be here holding one another's hand. Like there is a bigger picture that it's so hard sometimes to hold on to, but when you do, it will change the moment completely. It is that perspective shift that you need to remind yourself that like, we are just one small piece on this giant rock full of people, and we're all going through more things that are going to unify us than divide us. And can we all just try and hold on to that perspective?
That's so good. I can't speak for men, obviously, because I'm not a man, but I know what I wish that I was taught about my body and my feelings and when and how they show up and how your hormones are, right? Like I wish somebody would have taught me about that, or like what types of foods I need to eat when, right? Like that's a big deal, right? Certain times of the month you need to replenish certain vitamins and minerals, right? Like your body needs those things. Now for the men, like obviously I can't talk to that. But is there something that you're going to do differently with your kids now that, like, for me, I know that I'm teaching my son and my daughter about like, oh, you have a headache, instead of taking Tylenol, let's eat this type of food. Or, oh, your stomach is upset, instead of down in a Tums or a Pepto-Bismol, here, have a banana or something that can, offset. And so like, we're not getting woo woo or crunchy or whatever the term is. It's just like how I just want my kids to feel good. I just want people to
and there's
just
a different
feel
way.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a different way.
So I'm trying to teach them that. But is there something that you would like to instill into your kids knowing what you know now? Or even somebody who's listening, who's going through something maybe similar or just something that's unexpected, right? A turning point in their lives. Like, what
Yeah.
would you wish that they knew or that you could share with them?
Yeah. I mean, so many things. I think we look at our kids and we try and think to ourselves, what do we wish we were empowered with at that age? And a lot of when I think about my girls, it's how do we speak about ourselves? How do we, to your point about earlier about the emotions and feelings, how do we start to identify those at a young age and let them be our superpower? Let communication and talking about things be our superpower. So much as a kid, I feel like I was told, hey, you should be seen and not heard. And, I talked too much and I was too chatty and I was too out there. And like, I just always felt like too much. And after going through what I've gone through and the perspective that I have on the importance of talking about it, I'm like, you know what? Yeah, let's make sure my girls feel that way. Let's make sure that they feel empowered to put a name to their feelings and don't let them inhibit them or hold them back, but let them be a launching point into, well, what can that do for you or what can you do with that? So I think just being able to talk about and understand and communicate and just be emotionally intelligent, I think that is something that I really want to hopefully instill in them from a young age, that like that is your superpower. Let's stay in that space. But I mean, even what you were talking about, like how to feed your body in the right way. After going through the cancer diagnosis, and I did the genetic testing, and I was very lucky to not have the BRCA gene or other gene indicators that were predisposing me or my kids to cancer. Then you ask yourself, well, what caused this? Like, what happened? And
Yeah.
unfortunately, we're seeing so many more diagnoses. You're seeing it even in like pop culture and celebrities. They're all like coming out of the woodwork getting diagnosed with breast cancer under the age of 40. It's diabolical. Like, it's breaking my heart how common this is becoming. So you ask yourself, and what caused this? And unfortunately, we'll probably never really know like what actually caused it. But that's because there's so many possibilities. So, I mean, I switched out the cookware that we use. We're only on stainless steel now. We switched out our cleaning products. I've switched out all of my makeup. And so being able to have those conversations about safe swaps with my kids and why we use this over that, and, switching out your deodorant and understanding your body and what's in the things that you put on your body has become really important. And then, yeah, understanding how your body functions when you put things in your body. How is it responding to sugar? How is it responding when you're not hydrated? I laugh when I see those memes about, the wife is talking about how she's hangry and she's upset. And he's like, well, have you drank water today? It's like,
Yeah.
oh, no, like, yeah, stay hydrated. Be taking care of yourself and feeding yourself from the inside out. That really is important. And it's something that unfortunately our medical system and doctors do not support us and equip us in. That is a big thing that I found coming on the backside of, I finished treatment and I'm left to my own devices. I had to go out and investigate and find my own types of resources for what it looked like to feed my body differently in certain seasons, and how to, like, what foods are going to help, and what does food as immunotherapy look like. And that is something that was really scary and really hard. I felt like I stopped seeing doctors all the time. I stopped getting checked, and I was terrified it was just going to come back immediately, because that's what I had been, risk of recurrence. I had the stats in my head, and I wasn't being given anything outside of medicine to help. So like I had to go and investigate all of that on my own. And I really encourage others to look into, what does it look like to feed yourself, nourish yourself, get yourself protein, do all the right things. Yeah, we talk about like, you don't have to go full crunchy mom, but like just be aware of like, hey, what's an antioxidant? What types of foods have that? Or, what does it look like to put, right? Like to put electrolytes in your water, and, just how to take care of yourself, because unfortunately we as consumers, the world isn't going to do that for us. So we have to kind of take that into our own hands.
What's really hard about that too is like there's so much information. You're like, I don't know what's right to believe or what's not. Like, for example, I drink this brand, this LMNT. I don't know how Element.
Yeah.
I drink it because when I was pregnant with my daughter, they're like, salt is good, like hydration, right? Like it's good for you. But my whole life, I remember my grandparents saying like, watch it on the salt, take it easy on the salt. And it's like, so wait, is salt good for you or is salt bad for you? I don't understand. Is it the way you consume the salt that's going to hurt you? So it's like, I don't really know what to believe anymore. And so And same thing with food. And I think it goes back to, what does your individual body need? And I worked with a health coach a couple years ago, and she made me send in a couple pieces of hair, and it spit out this report of what my body was lacking or what it was sensitive to at that particular time in my life. Now, again, that was pre-baby. So my body and my hormones and my levels of everything may have changed since then. But I think it's important to understand what works for you, right? Because everybody was like, drink almond milk, because I was having sensitivities to regular milk. No, almond is like the worst thing for me. Like, don't make me drink almond milk, because I have a huge sensitivity to almond. And I didn't know that, because everybody was telling me, all the diet fads were telling me almond milk was better than dairy milk. And now it's just like, I don't even know who to believe, but where do you go for information? How do you know what's right and wrong? Like, is sugar going to cause cancer? Is coffee going to cause cancer? Like, is sunlight going to cause cancer? Like, I feel like everything causes cancer. And I'm scared shitless about it. I will just be honest with you. I feel I'm in constant worry and panic that I'm like, again, I told you, in a month from now, hopefully I'll get the peace of mind that, you know, I just have dense boobs. I don't know, but I hope that it's not. But it's like, how do you know if what you're eating is going to cause cancer or not? Because I feel like every secondhand smoke, you don't even have to be near somebody. No. Teflon pans, everything can cause it. And it's like, how do you know if you're doing the right thing? And I think what it comes back to is your faith in God and knowing that no matter the storm, He's going to carry you through it. And I know that if you're not a follower or believer in Christ, it is hard to comprehend that.
Oh, yeah.
But that's the only thing at the end of the day that keeps me sane. It is to know that cancer can come. Children do die. Parents do throw you under the bus. You know, like, you do get fired when you least expect it. Like, you know what I mean? I'm just like, there's so many tragedies out there. War happens. Terrorists happen. I mean, there's so much bad out there. And it's like, that's the one thing I can count on, is that there is a thing that I'm not ever going to know the answer to. And that you just have to have that faith. Like, that's the, I don't know. That's the only thing I can come back to.
It's the only thing you can come back to. I was going to say, you hit the nail on the head. Everything causes cancer. That first year after treatment, left to my own devices, so terrified. You know, I was told, hey, go find a nutritionist. Okay, well, every nutritionist does something differently. It is not a one size fits all. Anyone that tells you that it is wrong, is lying to you, or like, hey, this is going to solve all your problems. Take this supplement. It's going to fix everything. That's not the case. And it's going to change, especially for women on a daily, sometimes hourly basis. You have to make a choice as to whether or not you're going to live and be defined and dictated by the fear and the worry that we have about the unknown, the things that are out of our control, or if you're going to do your best to research, investigate, identify things that make sense for you and your family, and just move forward. I think I felt overwhelmed that first year, being like, my God, everything causes cancer. I stopped drinking, which honestly, that has been good to not have alcohol. My body has responded really well to that. But I still love sugar. I still love cookies and sweets. Like, I don't have every single cleaning product in my home. Every now and again, like, I just need this eyeliner because it's better than the crunchy one, you know, like, there are things in your life where you're like, it's never going to be perfect. And even if it was perfect, even if you're doing all the things, it can still happen. I look at some of these people out there who are like, again, celebrities, health influencers, people who you got to believe have access to and money for the best of the best, and it's still happening to them. So it's like, the only way that you can show up for yourself, for your family, and your job is to recognize that life is hard. We can't control it. Things are going to be unpredictable. Do what you can to educate yourself and to feel like you have some semblance of understanding as to what you can and cannot control. And then just be resolute in the desire to keep living and to keep moving forward, and to recognize that you're going to hit bumps. You're going to hit great chasms in your life, but pray to the good Lord that there's a purpose for it. You can move through it and move forward. I think, we can't control everything. And especially for, again, someone like me who is a type A, I have been accused of being a control freak once or twice in my life. Like, it is hard. Cancer doesn't care. I couldn't plan around it. I couldn't work my way through it or solution my way out of it. And it was one of those things where it forced me to sit in my humanity and my fragility to recognize that this idea of control is just an illusion. And I am here for one purpose, and that is to hopefully glorify my creator and to be a mom to these kiddos that God has blessed me with and entrusted me with, and a wife to my husband, and like just shine a light in what is a really dark world. And I have to find a way to just be okay with that as like my calling and my why for showing up every day.
Yeah, when you were talking, I'm a Christian, but your girl loves the Matrix. And so in my mind, I'm like, which pill do you want to take? Like, do you want to live in oblivion, or do you want to have the awareness? Like, do you want to be able to see? And it's like, you do have that choice. You can see from a new perspective. You can accept what is and just be. And so I just like, man, this is a good one. I feel like we could keep going. We may need a part 2 on this one.
We might need a part 2. I'm down. This is great. I love talking about that because it can go in any direction. There's so many things in this talk that we have. Like, there are just so many things to talk about. And you're right. Like, I only scratched the surface of my experience. It was one of those things when I was going through treatment, it was the idea of having to keep everyone updated on what I was going through sounded really overwhelming. I was told very early on by another cancer survivor, like, you have to conserve your energy for the things that only you can do. Anybody can wash your dishes. Anybody can show up and do your laundry. Anyone can cook you meals, but only you can be the mom that reads her baby a book at night. Only you can show up and like comfort your husband when he needs that. Like, those are the things that only I could do. And the thought of having to like tell everyone that loved me and cared about me every little part of my journey was really overwhelming and exhausting. And so my mom had said, hey, why don't you create like a Google Doc and share it with the people that are curious and want to know, and share your updates, just type them up, and honestly, like a little bit of a journal, right? So I did that, and it was game changer, because when you go through treatment, your brain gets like effed. Chemo brain is real. Mom brain is real. Like, you're living in a fog. It's very hard to remember
things. You had both at the same time.
Yes. Yeah. And so like, I was so thankful that I wrote it down and shared it with people, but I was able to reflect back on it once I had come to a more healthy place. And I created a blog, like lifeafterthelump.com, is where I have like that anthology of what I went through, and those moments and those raw experiences are out there. And it's one of those things that I pulled it into a website. I made it public because I knew that women my age or other people in the world were going to be going through something like this. And I wanted to feel like there was something out there where they could go and read like, hey, that was scary. She was terrified and she's still on the other side of it. Like, there is still hope. Yeah. There's something to look forward to after. And just wanted, again, to hopefully make sure that like my story didn't just end with me and with our experience here. So yeah, for anyone that does want to read that whole story, it's out there. Like, we get real and deep on all the things. There's one story where like I was going to get my port placed and I woke up mid-surgery. That was a terrifying one. Like, so that's a bit much. So, but it's all out there.
I was going to ask if you're going to write a book or something about it, but you've got it all out there already.
I would love to. I don't know. I feel like on my bucket list, I would love to write a book. I don't know if it's about this experience or what it is, but I feel like it's something where I've got that in me, and I would love to see if that could come to life someday.
I mean, you've got it set up perfectly. The life after the lump part. And like, that's the thing that I keep like trying to wrap my head around, is like, you're here, you're doing it. And like, there's so much hope in that, because like, whatever the tragedy, whatever the setback, whatever the experience that you've gone through that felt like negative or just not part of the plan, whatever the thing is, you're on the other side and you're here with us and you're telling this story. And it just is, I can't comprehend it. That's why I keep saying, it's just like, I can't even like come up with the right words of what I want to say today. Yeah. And I don't have a hard time finding words, but today for some reason I'm struggling, but it's just, you're here and you're you're so inspiring and your spirits are so, and I'm not saying that you don't have crappy days, because I'm sure you do. I had a crappy
Oh,
day
yeah.
yesterday, you know, like
Yeah.
I didn't feel like taking my kid to wrestling because I had cramps. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? It's like, that stuff is real.
It is
My
so
husband,
real.
you know, like if his back's hurting, or if he's just like, listen, I've just worked so hard, I just need a day off. Like,
Yeah.
that's real stuff. You don't have to be on all day, every day.
No.
And I just like, just looking at you, just knowing what you've shared today, it's just, I'm so inspired by you. I don't
love
even
that.
know
I'm
you that
glad.
well. And I just
I'm
like,
glad.
what your story does matter. And I think that's what you talked about at the beginning, is just like, whatever you're going through, it's important to share it, because it might help somebody else out.
Yeah.
And I'm weird about the whole like share your story part, because it's like, I feel like there needs to be boxes around that. Like, some
Right.
of this doesn't need to be shared. Some of it's like, wouldn't you rather put your energy into something else?
Right.
But this is the type of story that I'm like, yeah, this matters. And it reminds me of the story in the Bible of Job, who was, you know, full faith, like believer in God. And man,
Mm-hmm.
he got everything taken away from his
Yeah.
animals were taken, his
I
family was
know.
taken.
I do not want to be Job, man.
Everything. Like,
Yeah.
he was just standing. I think he was naked at one point. Like, they took the
Yeah.
clothes off his back. Like, he had nothing.
Yeah.
And he's like, I still love you. I still follow you. I still call you God. Like, you're, you know, I still will serve you.
Man.
And it's just like, if
It's
he
wild.
can go through that, like, those are the stories that I think are worth sharing, because like, it shows you that even when you have a setback, even when things don't go the way that you think, there is something on the other end of it, and it's for a reason. And I don't even think, I mean, if I were to be around and sat down with Job and I was like, so how do you think this is going to impact your grandchildren, your next generation? You know what I mean? Like, he has no clue that thousands of years later, what he went through is impacting other people. Like, here we are today
Completely.
talking about it. And it's like, you may not see how important your story is. You may not know the ripple effect. I mean, I can look at the analytics and who's, you know, how many people have listened to the episode, but you have no idea how many people you are going to probably just, it's like a virtual hug that you're probably going to give people, of just like, I'm just not alone in this. And we talk about that with everything, whether it's, you know, leadership and having toxic managers, or, you know, something personal going on, or just like, I don't know how to balance all the things. Like, I just want people to know, like, you're not the only one who's dealing with this, and not to diminish your story, but to just know that you aren't alone, and that people will help you with it, and you have a support system. And so,
yes.
oh man,
And you're
thank
creating
you
that
so much for that.
community. Like, I think that that's what's so beautiful, is like, you are really intentionally creating that community and giving voice and space to those experiences. You made a comment about like, not every day is great, and how like yesterday was a really hard, shitty day. I think that was something I learned too in the aftermath. The first year after diagnosis, it was in the spring, and I woke up one day and I was having like a really hard, dark day, and I was like, what the heck is going on? I was fine yesterday. I just feel so depressed and so sad and so emotional. What's going on? And then my friend, who was diagnosed on the same day as me, sent a text, and she's like, hey, diagnosis day, here we are. And I was like, oh my gosh. So then I started to look into that. There's this book out there, I think it's called The Body Keeps Score. This idea that your body remembers and holds on to these pivotal moments of impact that you receive, and like you brace for and take on. It remembers that. And so now every year, whenever that day comes up, like she and I both, we give it space. We get together, we have breakfast, or we say, hey, if you're feeling like crap and we don't want to see anybody and it's a dark day, we give it that space. It is really interesting. Like, when you lose someone, that becomes this kind of memorial in your mind, and your body internalizes all of that. It's one of those things where, to some degree, you can kind of plan for it, or at least mentally prepare yourself, like, hey, tomorrow might be a hard day. And if it's not, that's great, but I'm going to give it space if it needs it, just in case. Because I recognize that, like, I've been through something, I'm carrying something. It will always be a part of who I am. And like, let me make sure I can do what I can to set myself up for success, to move through it in a way that feels manageable, and that just gives it its space and gives it its due, almost like honors that, and then allows me to feel it and to move through it. I think that was something that I just didn't realize before.
Yeah. So, it reminded me of something Greg Kruger talked about in his episode a couple episodes back about how like, this is something that's happening to me. It doesn't define me. It's not who I am, right? This is just something I'm experiencing, and you get to decide what you do with that. And I don't remember exactly. I'm not going to quote him, but it's something like, you know, he'll wake up in the morning and every day he's like, you've got this. Like he just like pets himself up, and you're making yourself do it. And then eventually it becomes habit. And it's like, today's going to be a good day. I freaking love my body. I love what it has gone through. And Jana Earp actually talked about this too, in her podcast episode, when she had some health issues, and she was just like, I love that my body went through that and like took care of me and carried me through that, because like it could have given up. And I'm so thankful for my strength, both mentally and physically. And like, she used to look at it through a lens of like, not victim, but like almost just like, man, that happened to me, and it
happened to me.
And it happened to me, but I'm not that anymore. And then here's what I've learned from that. And is, man, the mindset piece. I love that so
strong.
Much.
I mean, and I want, like, I think that's what I still struggle with, is my body has changed immensely from treatment. Like I have scars. I have like a port scar here. I have scars in places that I would never have otherwise. And same thing with like motherhood and going through like having children, and you look different and you feel different. But what I'm learning is that if you talk to yourself differently, that can have impact. And I'm recognizing, again, raising two small girls, like what I say to myself and the way that I think about myself, they see it, they hear it, it comes out, and it influences the way that they think about themselves. And I don't want to let my insecurities and like worries and fears about how I'm showing up physically, God, I don't want to pass that on to them. I want them to see mommy and what she went through and be like, man, she was so strong. She can do anything. And I want them to say it so much that I start to believe it. And I want to say it so much that I start to believe it. And there are days where I wake up and I'm like, man, I do not feel it today. I don't want to get up. I don't want to get going. But what a blessing that I can walk. What a blessing that I can take air into my lungs. What a blessing that like I am still standing here and I'm whole and I'm strong, and I look at what my body overcame, and I get to do it again tomorrow. I don't say it every day. It's not every day that I have that mindset, but I really try to hold on to it. It's one of those things that it brings you back real fast into what matters. It snaps that focus, snaps it into focus for you.
Well, and it's a practice. You have to intentionally do that. You're not just going to wake up and your mind is going to be filled with good thoughts. I wonder, I think this is in the book. It's either in Outwitting the Devil or it's in Conversations with God. I've got the book back there somewhere.
Okay.
I don't remember which one of those two books it's in. But it must be Outwitting the Devil, I think. Whatever the book is, where the guy is having a conversation with the devil, and somehow he convinces the devil to be interviewed. And he's like, I want to ask you all the questions. And the devil's like, okay, fine. Like whatever the deal was. And he's like, you can ask me anything and I'll tell you the answer to anything. And so the guy's like asking all these questions, and he's just like, you talk to me about mindset and like thoughts and stuff like that. And I don't remember all the details, but basically the devil is explaining that your mind has to be filled with something. Right. And you can kind of envision it like, the default thought is like room temperature water. And for order for it to be a positive thought, think of it as like boiling water. You have to activate it. You have to put effort into moving the molecules, right? Mm-hmm. And so if your default is either nothing or it's cold. And so cold meaning like negative thoughts. And so you have to intentionally put the fire underneath the pot to have the good thoughts. And so like that's where I think affirmations and practicing good speaking habits to yourself and filling your mind with positive things. Like you said, if you want to find the good, you will find the good. If you want to find the bad, you'll find the bad.
You'll find it.
You turn on the news, you will find chaos.
You will find it.
Normally, they need to report something that is going to capture people's attentions, and you'll have one good story for 10 chaotic bad stories.
Yep.
And so like it takes effort to think positive. It takes effort. And I'm not perfect about it. I don't think anybody will be. Nobody has that mastered, because you're human. That's kind of part of the deal. But it's just, that's so good. Thank you so much for for coming on to the podcast and sharing your story. And like I said, I know that we didn't even get into everything. And so I think we may need to have,
let's have a round two. Oh, let's have a round two.
We should have a round two. I think that'll be so good. But yeah. I just appreciate it. And like I said, you're such an inspiration, and you've just got me thinking about a lot of things. And I know that a lot of the people listening have got their wheels turning too. So thank you so much for coming on and sharing that.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. Like I said, if at the end of the day you go through something like this, and you got to believe that it was for something. And if my story and experience and the things I take away from it can even bring a semblance of hope or positivity or encouragement, or just someone be like, hey, I'm not alone in this, then it will have been worth it. So thank you for that opportunity. I've really enjoyed this time this morning.
Yeah. If people do want to read your story, can you tell us again where they can find that, how they can kind of follow along?
Yeah, it's lifeafterthelump.com. So go take a look and see if there's any stories out there that resonate with you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I'll put the link in the show notes, and stay tuned. We may have to have a second conversation here.
That sounds good.
All right. Thank you.